What's up everybody, Landon with Late Model Restoration. Our AOD to T5 transmission swap series has finally reached the end of the road, which is part 5. This segment covers T5 installation, as well as a speedometer cable and gear installation, and the remaining odds and ends to finish off the swap. I finally made it, so let's check it out. Before continuing, I encourage you to watch parts 1, 2, 3, and 4 to get a better understanding about the swap and to see what we've already covered. To this point, I have removed the majority of the interior, swapped out pedal assemblies, removed the atrocious AOD transmission, and have prepped the car for the installation of the T5 transmission. Part 5 will involve T5 install, finishing off the underside of the car, as well as the remaining components to finally put the icing on the cake. Like part 4, I used several new parts where I could and also encourage you guys to do the same. For a complete parts list, be sure and check out the link in the video description or the card in the upper right hand corner on your screen. Picking up from part 4 with the pilot bearing, flywheel, and clutch, and of course the bell housing already installed, go ahead and grab some help from a friend. Before installing the T5, make sure you apply a thin film of grease to the bearing retainer sleeve and the splines on the input shaft. Position the T5 transmission into place. I did go ahead and pre-install the cross member and the transmission mount prior to installing the T5 into the car. Once you seat the input shaft into place, go ahead and slide the cross member retaining hardware through the mounting brackets. Tighten the hardware with a series of multiple sockets and socket wrenches. Once that is done, loosely tighten the 4 transmission to bell housing bolts. Now torque them in a cross pattern to 45 to 65 foot-pounds. Before going any further, make sure the transmission mount is not in a bind. If it is, go ahead and loosen the retaining hardware and then retighten. Take this time to also install and fully tighten the 2 bottom spacer plate to bell housing bolts. Using a 5.0 Resto manual specific backup light harness, plug the connections into the side of the transmission and on the wiring harness. Since I kept the automatic harness and the automatic PCM in the car, I zip tied the neutral sensing switch out of the way. This is the connection that is plugged into the top of the T5 transmission. Of course, be sure and zip tie the backup light switch out of the way as well. Pry back the body clip to free the speedometer cable. Remove the retaining bolt that secures the cable to the frame rail via a cable bracket. Pull the cable down and remove it from the car. Pry open the cable bracket, clean it, and set it aside. This cable needs replacing, and I would advise you to do the same. If your car was equipped with a speed sensor, pull up on the hairpin clip and slide the sensor off of the cable. Clean the sensor with quality electric parts cleaner. Slide the new cable into the speed sensor and secure it with the hairpin clip. Since speedometer gears differed slightly between automatic and manual transmissions, a new gear is required when swapping to a T5. The small and subtle difference was the automatic transmission Speedo gears had a longer shaft, whereas the manual transmission Speedo gears had a little bit shorter shaft. Pry off the retaining clip and then remove the gear from the cable or the speed sensor. Thoroughly clean the area and use some cable lubricant to lightly lubricate the cable shaft or the speed sensor shaft. Slide on the new gear, followed by the retaining clip. Route the cable towards the top of the engine. Install the previously removed cable bracket. Position the bracket on the frame rail and then retighten the retaining bolt. Slide the cable back into the metal clip. Locate the end of the Speedo cable that is going to plug into the gauge cluster. Carefully remove the cable from the outer sheath. Use some more cable lubricant and lubricate the entire cable. Now you can slide it back into the outer sheath. Slide the speed sensor or cable into the T5 transmission. Secure the cable or speed sensor with the retaining bolt. If you're going to be reusing the automatic drive shaft, take this time to clean the yoke. Go ahead and apply a few drops of thread locker to the drive shaft retaining bolts. Remember to remove any plug that was inserted into the tail shaft of the T5. Apply a thin film of transmission fluid to the yoke and then slide it into the transmission. Loosely tighten the drive shaft to pinion flange hardware. Fully tighten and then torque these bolts to 71 to 95 foot-pounds. Route the clutch cable up through the engine bay. Make sure the clutch cable runs between the engine block and K-member. Position the bracket onto the hole in the frame rail and use an appropriate sized self-tapping bolt to secure the bracket to the frame rail. This bracket will sit just behind the sway bar bracket mount on the driver's side. Slide the clutch cable through the bell housing provision and then through the clutch fork. Secure the cable to the bell housing with the correct retaining clip. Now you can go ahead and reinstall the mid-pipe and tighten the retaining hardware. Reconnect the oxygen sensor connections if equipped, and then secure those harnesses out of the way, making sure they are free and clear of the exhaust. If you're working on a lift, lower the car enough so that you can remove the throttle valve cable from the bracket on the throttle body. This is done by rotating the plastic lock with an open-end wrench. Remove it from the bracket and then remove the throttle valve cable from the car. If you're installing a firewall adjuster, position it into place and then go ahead and center punch the holes. Carefully drill them out with the appropriate bit and then secure the adjuster to the firewall with the retaining screws. Remove the rubber firewall bushing from the cable and then file down the tabs. If you chose not to install a firewall adjuster, leave this bushing alone. Once the tabs are filed down, thread the firewall adjuster all the way in until it stops. Engage the clutch cable into the adjuster. Inside of the car, position the eyelet of the cable over the double hook quadrant. To hold it in place so you can adjust the cable at the clutch fork, retain the eyelet with a rubber band. Go ahead and stab the speedometer cable through the firewall and position the new grommet into place. Pull the cable through the firewall and the dash. Go ahead and position the cluster back into place. Connect the electrical connections and engage the speedo cable with the cluster. Go ahead and retighten the engaged cluster retaining hardware. Back underneath the car, thread the adjusting nut up against the clutch fork and go ahead and give it a few tightening turns. Follow that up with the lock nut. Install the clutch fork dust cover and secure it with the retaining screw. If your T5 doesn't have a shifter, then check out our detailed installation video in the video description or the card in the upper right-hand corner on your screen. Once you get the shifter installed and handle, reconnect the negative battery cable and throw a seat in the car. Start the car and check for proper clutch engagement. Turn out on the firewall adjuster as needed to achieve the correct and proper clutch engagement. If you aren't using a firewall adjuster, you'll need to make adjustments at the clutch fork. Once that is done, go ahead and reinstall all of your interior components. Of course, take this time to upgrade anything that shows signs of age or normal wear and tear. Get the car on the ground and take it for a spin. Do a few smoky burnouts and enjoy that new T5. Alrighty guys, that'll conclude our AOD to T5 transmission swap. If this is something that's on your to-do list for your Fox body, there is one final installation note that I would like to make clear. Ford was notorious for changing small things over the course of the Fox era. With that being said, if you plan on swapping the entire PCM and harness from a manual donor car, make sure that the car is the exact same year as yours. Throughout the years, pinouts were different, oxygen sensor wiring is different, and of course the manual harness has the optional neutral sensing switch connection. I took the shortcut route and left all the automatic wiring in place and the PCM in the car. I did install the neutral safety switch along with the backup light connection. Another common question involving this swap is weight differences. The AOD weighs in at a ground-pounding 200 pounds, while a T5, a billet steel flywheel, clutch and pressure plate assembly, and of course bell housing tip the scale at roughly 130. That's an estimated weight savings of 70 pounds. Overall, this swap is fairly straightforward, guys. Yes, there were plenty of times that I wanted to throw a wrench through the door because things weren't going my way. All I can tell you is don't get frustrated and take your time. I hope you all have enjoyed watching our AOD to T5 swap as much as I've enjoyed showing you. Be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more awesome and the best Fox Mustang content on the planet. And for those of you that don't already know, keep it right here with the real Fox Mustang enthusiasts, LMR.com.